Hello, my name is Sally Deloria, and this is my Action Research Proposal presentation. To define the purpose of the study for you, I want to begin with Alex's story. Alex is in 3rd grade. He never does his homework, and he rarely finishes any classwork. He always makes rude jokes when the teacher is talking and asks unrelated questions. He's constantly arguing with all his classmates and does not seem to have many friends, which makes sense because he's rarely kind to any of his peers. One day, the teacher announces that there's an assignment for the students to interview a member of their family about their childhood. After explaining all the requirements, she asks, "Are there any questions?" Alex raises his hand and says, "This is the stupidest assignment I have ever heard of. Do I even have to do it?" The teacher has had it at this point, and she says, "Alex, that's it. Go straight to the principal's office. I've had enough. The principal will be expecting you, and I'm calling down there right now." Anyone can understand why the teacher is upset at Alex's rude behavior. But think for a moment. Can you understand why Alex is upset? There is so much more about Alex's behavior than what we see. Alex is a Latinx student who grew up in a home with adults using and selling drugs. He witnessed his dad shot and killed in their front doorway 3 years ago. Afterwards, he was removed from the home and separated from his 3 siblings and placed in foster care. He has not seen his mother since he was taken from home, but he doesn't really care. She was always mean to him, insulted him, and made rude jokes. She was never kind. He misses his dad, though, because he always joked with Alex, but his jokes weren't mean, they were funny. He's glad he doesn't have to share a room anymore with his brothers, but he really misses his big sister. Now you can begin to see why Alex thought the assignment was not worth his time. Can you see why just the thought of the assignment alone was upsetting to Alex? Students like Alex are set up from an early age to be funneled into what is known as the school-to-prison pipeline. Due to Alex's socioeconomic background, he is already a marginalized student. But this marginalization is further amplified by his adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Alex's story helps to exemplify the importance of the purpose of the study. The purpose of the study is threefold. One of the purposes is to explore ways teachers can reduce behavioral problems associated with ACEs that result in decreased academic success. Another purpose is to examine the impact trauma-informed social-emotional learning curriculum has on the coping skills of students with ACEs. And finally, another purpose is to measure the effects that a multi-tiered system of supports approach has on implementing social-emotional learning curriculum, and what this effect has on the development of students' social-emotional competencies, as well as the rate of discipline and disruptions in the classroom. The research question guiding the study is, what are the effects of social-emotional reconditioning on elementary students with adverse childhood experiences as measured through case studies in a longitudinal ethnographic analysis? Although the popularity of social-emotional learning is increasing, there are barriers in program content and instruction that prove to be problematic. The significance of this study lies in the uniqueness of the way the implemented social-emotional reconditioning considers these barriers and aims to remove them. The universal approach to social-emotional learning does not work. This one-size-fits-all approach falls flat for students with ACEs who need the most help developing social-emotional competencies. This is addressed in the way that the study uses a multi-tiered system of supports to address students' social-emotional needs with intensifying levels of classroom instruction. It can be estimated that over 50% of students, and this is prior to all these socio-political events and COVID-19 in 2020, over 50% of students have ACEs. Trauma-informed practices are crucial to social emotional learning because they assist in creating a positive, supportive, and responsive learning environment. This study integrates cultural adaptations as part of the curriculum implemented, which is imperative because, as previously stated, marginalized populations experience higher rates of trauma, which negatively impact the development of social emotional competencies as well as academic success. Although over 40 references have influenced the development of the purpose of this study and the related action research proposal, there are only a handful that stand out as significantly recurrent through the 3 chapters. The first study was one that was led by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, the Surgeon General of California since 2019. The study was conducted at Bayview Child Health Center, a nonprofit community-based clinic serving a low-income area at which she was a pediatrician. It is comprised of extensive quantitative research that proves the significant negative impacts of ACEs on young urban students that last into adulthood, including behavioral, learning, and physical health implications. Her research reveals a deep-seated need for early ACEs screening. This study guided the idea for the need of early ACEs screening in schools as a way to effectively implement the appropriate level of social-emotional reconditioning in this research proposal. The second is titled A Systematic Review of Cultural Adaptations of School-Based Social, Emotional, and Behavioral Interventions for Students of Color. It's by a team of researchers from the University of Illinois. This study examines the disproportionate use of exclusionary discipline and punitive discipline on students of color. Social emotional learning programs aim to address these disparities, but oddly enough, these programs lack cultural adaptations and implications. There are theoretical proposals for cultural adaptations, but a lack of practice in applying these modifications and adaptations. This indicates the need for social emotional learning programs that can be implemented with cultural adaptations for further study, which leads to the reasoning for the integration of cultural adaptations in this research proposal, as guided by the suggested adaptations by these researchers gathered from over 10 studies. The study, titled Social Emotional Competence Trajectories from a School-Based Child Trauma Symptom Intervention in a Disadvantaged Community, by a research team from the Department of Human Development and Family Services at the University of Connecticut, provided important structural guidance shaping this action research proposal. The similarities between the study and the present study include using a trauma-informed approach, comparing 2 groups, one which received intervention and another that did not, and employing a longitudinal study in a low-income, high-crime area, which indicates students have high rates of trauma. Another source of research in this study was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Many educators are already familiar with this hierarchy of needs. Teachers can help students reach their full potential by providing a safe, inclusive, and supportive classroom environment that facilitates the fulfillment of the deficiency and growth needs in Maslow's hierarchy. However, some students may have a more difficult time becoming motivated and engaged in academics if their basic needs are not met, such as students with ACEs. Maslow stated, "The most pressing goals will monopolize consciousness." If these deficiencies are not met, an individual will be all consumed by the motivation to meet them and will be unable to meet higher level needs which are required for academic learning and success. This explains exactly why universal social emotional learning programs that focus simply on social emotional competencies and esteem needs fall flat for students with ACEs. Do you think Alex would care to learn about how to feel accomplished when he doesn't even feel secure or loved to begin with? This is why trauma-informed practices are important for educators to operate under, to understand where a student is coming from in their behavior, rather than just administering punitive or exclusionary discipline from the resulting behavior. Understanding and connecting with students help them feel emotionally safer and more secure in their classroom environment. The teacher could have let Alex know that they can talk about his concerns later, and then sought his perspective on the assignment's relativity to his life, rather than sending him away. So let's dive into the methodology of this study. For the participants, the school selected for this research is a low-income school in an urban area serving students with high rates of traumatization, which is associated with an area that has high rates of crime. 2 third-grade classes will be included in this study. The sample class will receive social-emotional learning curriculum in a multi-tiered system of support format. The control class will not receive any social-emotional reconditioning. The grade selected for this study is 3rd grade, as these students can provide more articulate self-reporting than lower grades through journal writing prompts required for data collection. Several sources indicate that 3rd grade students are developmentally ready and able to accurately self-reflect, which is supported by evidence from a 2017 study by Keelty, Gilligan, Stanton, and Curtis, and the California Common Core state standards for this grade. Students with ACEs will be identified, and 8 of those students will be selected at random for focused case studies. The teachers in both classes will be tasked with administering surveys and conducting observations. Both classes will participate in ACEs screening through a self-reported survey at the beginning of the year, and an exit survey wherein students will reflect on social-emotional competencies. The teacher of the sample class will also administer the social-emotional reconditioning curriculum to all students, with increasing support and intensity for students in Tier 2 and Tier 3. Tier 3 will be made up of students with ACEs. Now let's look at the data collection. ACEs screening will be conducted in both classes at the beginning of the school year through a student self-reported survey of multiple choice, true or false, and fill-in-the-blank answers. The survey will be provided in both English and Spanish and any other language that's spoken fluently by students in the classrooms. The survey will include screening for the following ACEs: car accidents, serious illness, bullying, divorce or separation, death in a family, racial discrimination, frequent or long-distance moves, immigration, single-parent household, 2 working-parent household. Additional questions asked of students will include frequency and intensity of feeling: lonely, sad, scared, confused, overwhelmed, anxious, mad, angry, bored, not wanting to go home, or not wanting to go to school. A section for self-reporting other difficult experiences will also be included. ACEs screening surveys will only be accessible to the researchers, credentialed teachers, school psychologist or counselor, and the school principal. The teachers from both classes will also record all discipline measures and significant disruptions over the course of the school year. Discipline measures include mandatory disciplinary actions, office referrals, parents or guardians contacted due to the violation of school policy on violence, suspension, and expulsion. Significant disruptions include behavior that takes away from instruction time, student learning time, student work time, or verbal and physical conflicts reported from both in and out of the class. These will be recorded on a spreadsheet including all students' participant identifiers for each class. The purpose of this tracking is to measure any changes in behavior in the sample class and for Comparison of behaviors between the comparison and control class.